Erev Tov Chavrim, I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Going to be looking at several different areas tonight, kind of combining two things, a little bit of a teaching along with breaking news that's happening, including strikes by Israel inside of Syria. Also, we're going to be looking directly at U.S. involvement with ISIS down on the eastern side of the Euphrates, as well up near the northern part of Syria. Some very odd things going on there. Then we're going to be getting into some issues there about those two witnesses, some amazing insights I've discovered, looking at also a very odd thing, especially with the Exodus coming up in the very near future here. A little short piece on redemption and on some thoughts that are shared by the Jewish community. I want to bring that out with you. And then we're going to be briefly speaking to tonight here on April the 14th, 2019, about the upcoming conference with Pastor Paul Bagley. It's going to be about Nibru as a closed-door meeting. And listen, I really think you'll want to be there. I know there's going to be some really amazing speakers that are coming there. And I have to tell you, I really appreciate about Pastor Paul. I always have an open platform to speak what's on my heart. And that's something that a lot of people really take for granted, that, people don't realize that when I'm invited, what I like is when I get invited somewhere, my wife gets invited to speak there, is that we can have liberty to speak what's on our heart there. And that just gives us so much of an opportunity to share insights with people that may not otherwise have heard some of the things that are on our heart as well. And I'm going to get to share some things there that I think will bless many of you that are able to make it. So I will be getting into that a little bit later there, taking you to Brother Paul's website there. This is where the conference is being shown right here. The heavens are shaking. May the 11th. You can get tickets there. You can be a part of that. It's going to be in Ohio. At a place called Blue Ash, Ohio, on the northeast corner of Cincinnati, Ohio. So hopefully we'll get to see you there. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the broadcast. But let's get started right now. Partisan Girl had loaded up video footage of Israeli warplanes going into Syria, striking targets. Of course, the footage that she's putting up here is just those warplanes flying in. And the dismay of so many in Syria is why the Russian S-300s are not engaging with Israeli aircraft, violating their airspace there, taking out targets that are clearly killing Syrian servicemen. And I even kind of am dumbfounded about that. And listen, I love the Jewish people. I love my own people very dearly, but I do believe in the human rights. I believe in equality. I believe passionately that Israel should honor the covenant that Jacob made with Laban. And I know some people would say, in fact, a good friend of mine in Israel, he's always telling me, he said, Steve, he says, why do you bring up something old like that? That's an old covenant that doesn't matter anymore. Listen. The state of Israel bases their right to be in the land off of ancient biblical text. All right? And if we're going to say that we have a right to be in the modern state of Israel today based on ancient biblical text, then we need to keep the ancient biblical covenant. And that covenant with Syria was made between Laban and Jacob, not to cross over the mound to do either one harm. And the only one crossing over the mound to do the other harm, in this case here, is the Israeli government under the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu. He is violating the covenant that was made with Laban. So don't claim Israel as our homeland on an ancient covenant if we don't accept the agreements of our ancient covenant as well. And therefore, too, we had no right to drive out the occupants of the land either based on the ancient covenant, because we were not dealing with the Zamzamim. We were not dealing with the Nephilim or the Nephalim. We were not dealing with the giants as it was 2,000 years ago. And in fact, the very Palestinians of today, as they say, some are Jordanian descent, some are Egyptian descent, but many of them as well are descent of the house of Israel. 50% of Palestinians have DNA equal to that of many of the Sephardic Jews that are living in different parts of the land. So we should have done like Abraham did. Abraham, when he came, he would not allow anybody just to give him land. He didn't go in there and fight and take the land. He went there and he purchased the land. When Joshua and Caleb came up, they were dealing with what? They were dealing with the giants of the land, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite, all of these guys here. They had gone in there, they'd done all kinds of wickedness. They brought in these Nephilim, corrupted the human race with these giants that were in the land, that were eating up, devouring the land at that time. Ishmael's children went in there and defeated the Zamzamim, the giants over in the area just east of the Jordan River. And so therefore, God told Moses, leave Ishmael's children alone. They did what I gave them this land, and they defeated these giants. They wiped them out. Even Esau did the same thing. And he said to him, leave Esau's people alone. All right, so we don't have a right to come in here and drive out the people there because we're not dealing with giants at this time in history. Now, I do believe, though, like in the case when Yeshua was on the earth, we had reptilians that were involved right there in Israel under the Maccabean dynasty or the Hasmonean dynasty. And I believe that we're seeing that return again in modern days. Different subject altogether. Don't have much time to get into that. So let's take a look, though, what is happening, what's breaking in the news. Amman News is saying that Israeli warplanes coalition carried out several raids Saturday evening that targeted an Islamic State sleeper cell in eastern region of the Euphrates River Valley of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported this morning. All right, that was a coalition that carried out that strike there. According to the SOR report, the U.S. military personnel raided the village of Taki last night, where they targeted a housing belonging to the suspected Islamic State sleeper cell. During the raid, the U.S. military came under heavy gunfire from suspected Islamic State fighters inside the home. Eventually, the U.S. military was able to overwhelm them, killing 5 suspects, including 1 woman. The U.S. military also arrested 8 of the suspects, who mostly of Iraqi and Syrian descent, according to what the statement is on that. All right, but then we have this other issue that came up as well. Let me pull this up and get to the right spot here. I got the wrong one up right now. Rockets kill 11 in Syria's Aleppo, according to the state media. This is from Yahoo News. Said rockets fired by jihadists on Sunday killed at least 11 people in the Syrian city of Aleppo, held by President Bashar al-Assad's regime. State news agency Sana reported. Wait a minute. Do I have the right article up here? Yeah, I do have the right article up. Okay. Since the regime began control, I'm losing my spot here. Move the microphones. Made me forget everything I'm doing here. They wounded 11 civilians in the neighborhood of Aleppo using terminology reserved for both jihadists and rebels. The news agency originally reported that 6 civilians were among the dead, but its latest update did not give a breakdown. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a British-based war monitor, said the rockets were fired by jihadist groups, notably HTS. Now, I have to tell you something about that monitoring group there. It's one guy out of the UK, I think, that does this, so I don't always trust the source that he has on there. Now, the Times of Israel is reporting Netanyahu appears to hint that Israel carried out the latest Syrian strike. Again, this came out today on the 14th of April. Says days after the bombardment report and flattens Iran-linked missile factory in Masyaf, Prime Minister says IDF continue to operate on the northern front. The Prime Minister Netanyahu on Sunday seemed to hint that Israel was responsible for an airstrike in central Syria over the weekend that reportedly targeted an Iranian-linked weapons factory. We are continuing to operate on all fronts, he says, including the northern one. Now, also we have the Times of Israel reports Iranian forces said killed in the reported Israel airstrike on a Syrian missile factory. But when we come to the Amman News, they're reporting a little different. It says The Israeli airstrike on the Syrian city of Masyaf managed to destroy a missile launcher, a new report said on Saturday. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, the Israeli Air Force launched several airstrikes over the city of Masyaf in western Hama. According to the report from the city in western Hama, the Israeli airstrikes hit a Syrian M600 ballistic missile launcher, aka Maya Salun, near the Masyaf National Hospital. A picture of the destroyed M600 missile launcher was posted on Saturday. It would show the complete destruction of the Syrian military weapon. The Israeli attack also destroyed a military storage facility that was located in the vicinity of Masyaf National Hospital. Despite erecting their S-300 anti-aircraft missiles near the city of Masyaf, the Syrian military did not actually use this system. A source from the Syrian military said that the units authorized to use the S-300 system have yet to complete training. What a bunch of garbage. You know, listen, I don't want to see Israeli pilots killed or shot down, you know, but then again, I don't want to see Israeli pilots taking out Syrian targets over Syria. Syria has not been an aggressor against the state of Israel. And even with all the attacks that Netanyahu always claims, it's Iran targets, Iranian targets, Iranian targets. Well, I agree that a lot of these are Iranian targets, but I also know too, up here near Hama, what's going on as well that's not being reported to you is that the jihadists are also attacking Aleppo once again, and the Syrian army is trying to defeat these jihadists that are backed by Israeli forces. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, let me see if I got any of that information handy. That's another issue I want to deal with there. Oh, gosh. Maybe it's in the Israeli article. Let me just see real quick here. Maybe it's in the Iranian article. I ran across this. That's what kind of blew me away. I don't have it right here. Maybe oh gosh, I must have not put it up, and I really apologize, because that was the other thing that I was seeing that was going on near Hama, because Hama, you got to understand, is just north of the Idlib province, and right there at the Idlib province, we were having the jihadist al-Nusra Front and Al-Qaeda that were sending missiles over into Aleppo. Now, Aleppo was, back in 2016, was liberated by the Syrian military and the Russian military. They liberated the city, and now they're coming under barrage of rocket fire once again. And when the Syrians are trying to do something about it, the Israelis are coming in and knocking out the Syrian defensive capabilities as well. And this is really, it's just tit for tat. And it shows me that President Putin of Russia is on the Israeli side on this. Even though Putin is there to help the Syrian people, his loyalty is more to Netanyahu. Instead of being a true peacemaker between the two, he sides more with Netanyahu and not bringing in an equality for humanitarian purposes whatsoever. That's a new world order agenda then. And I hate to see that, because that tells me that so many people are duped into believing a new world order agenda. It's beyond me. No wonder why. I mean, oh, geez. You know, let me tell you something. Will Russia end up attacking Israel? Well, probably so, but don't kid yourself. It'll be within cooperation with an Israeli government that's allowing it so that they can make it look like prophecies fulfilling the way they say it is. Ah, what a mess. All right. I got to share something with you here, though. This here, posted by, who was it? Tulsi Gabbard. Is actually posted by Tulsi Gabbard originally, but then this was shared as well. I don't know who actually shared this, but it's on Tulsi Gabbard's post. Popped up in here. Ex-Mossad head on Israel medical aid to al-Nusra Front up front. Now, I'm bringing this up because what I want you to see is the former Mossad chief's admission to Israel's involvement in aiding al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, and how this is really It's an agenda is what it comes down to being. Although he tries to get around it, it's an agenda. And he's on Al Jazeera, where he's being interviewed at. And then, and quite frankly, Al Jazeera, to me, is a propaganda piece of the United States and Israel anyway. That's just my opinion. I really think they're propaganda. But then I'm going to share with you, so let me just go ahead and move it over here I'm going to share with you when RT interviews Tzipi Livni. Now, these are both old articles, but they're worth sharing with you so you can see what we're talking about right now. So we're going to go to minute 232 in this video. I can't make it bigger for you, so let me just play it like it is. Let's see if we got it loud enough. Here we go.
Follow such a policy.
So to be clear, Israel does...
Wait 1 second. Make sure we got enough volume on the back end here. All right, here we go.
not have a preference between
It does
the
not have
rebels
a preference,
and
no.
Assad. It's
I
whoever
believe-
sticks to this description.
I think
of
we have
events.
no preference.
Okay, you say no preference. There have been reports that Israel's been treating wounded Syrian rebel fighters in its hospitals on the border, including fighters from Nusra Front, which is, of course, the Al-Qaeda proxy in Syria. Do those reports worry you that Israel's helping wounded Al-Qaeda-aligned fighters?
As I said before, in a different context, it's always useful also to deal with your enemies in a humane way. And I think that when you have people who are wounded and you can deal with them in a humane way, the considerations as to whether to take them in are not simply whether it's politically useful or whether it's politically...
So it's purely humanitarian, you say. So there's no tactical or political strategic...
I didn't say there's no tactical. I said the main consideration, the immediate consideration is humane.
But the tactical issues involved, I mean, you know better than me the phrase blowback. You don't think there's going to be blowback against Israel if you get into bed with a group like Nusra Front?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be blowback.
Why?
Because I think that, unfortunately, the rules of the game in Syria are such that you can do anything that is not possible to be done anywhere else.
Yeah, I think people said that in Afghanistan too. Would you also treat Hezbollah fighters?
No. I would not treat...
Have you not just contradicted what you told me 60 seconds ago? But humanely treating your enemies?
No. I think as far as Hezbollah fighters are concerned, with them we have a different account.
So let me be clear, you're happy to treat Al-Qaeda fighters, but not Hezbollah fighters?
We have a different account with Hezbollah, a totally different account, because Hezbollah has carried out the type of actions against us which preclude us from going into what the Al-Qaeda has done. Al-Qaeda, to the best of my recollection, has up to now not attacked Israel.
It's attacked your #1 ally and protector and sponsor, the United States of America. There was a quote-unquote war on terror being going on for 15 years.
First of all, when it comes to fighting Al-Qaeda in intelligence and in other areas, yes, we are together with the United States on all these things.
Okay.
But Israel...
Now, before I let it play on just a little bit longer, did you notice? Here's the Mossad chief, former Mossad chief of Israel. All right, he was the head of the Mossad. And he's saying to you, they will care for Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda. And yet, supposedly, Al-Qaeda was the one that created the terror plot against the United States, which we know is bogus. I mean, let's just face it. You need to wear water waders all the way up to your throat to get through the cow manure there, right? Because we know that was an inside job. Trump was able to say that during the campaign trail, but just like Julian Assange, he doesn't have the guts to say it now. Right? But, so he asked him about Hezbollah. Would you treat Hezbollah fighters? No. No. All right? Listen to what else he has to say, because the interviewer puts him on the spot right here. He says, your #1 ally, the United States, is fighting a war against Al-Qaeda, and they're not your enemy. Listen.
Israel was not specifically targeted by Al-Qaeda, and therefore it's a different kind of account than we have with Hezbollah.
You said Israel should talk to Hamas, talk to your enemies.
Yes.
Would you also talk to Hezbollah?
If they change their spots, yes. If they show the inclination.
All right. I wanted to show that to you because this is really amazing to me. All right. Now, listen here. This is Tzipi Livni, foreign Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs. And she was on RT being interviewed as well. And we got into the same issue with her here as with the former ex-Mossad agent. Now, keep in mind, Tzipi Livni is of the left. She's not of the far right like Netanyahu did, as you know, expel all the Palestinians out of the West Bank, annex this, annex that, you know, destroy all the people in Gaza. She's supposed to be the far left. She's supposed to be the one that was trying to broker the two-state deal, right? Which to me, the two-state deal was done a long time ago. And by the way, the two-state deal was dealing with the Vatican getting what it wants, not what the Palestinian people get what they want. Although they will divide Jerusalem, and there will be an east side will go to the Palestinians, but it may be under Jordanian control, and it's just basically like the Palestinians will become the governor, right? Listen to what Tzipi Livni said, though, in an RT interview, and this has been a little while back now, I think it was last year.
States that support terrorist organizations like Iran and Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, and terrorist organizations themselves, and we need to act against them, and I believe that we need to act against them forcefully, and this is something that the international community should do. And therefore, you would not find me supporting in any way or you know, living with the situation of what Daesh is doing against all of us, because they would not compromise on our existence.
But how then would you explain the Israel's position of neutrality in the Syrian conflict? If you're so willing to confront terrorist organizations, why didn't Israel jump on board, joined Russia in Syria, and help exterminate the jihadi force there? Then the Iranian influence perhaps would have been somewhat curtailed.
I hope that you would not suggest that Israel would send our soldiers to fight in Syria.
You should!
Happen, hopefully. And I hope that this is not your suggestion.
But how then? I mean, I don't want to be argumentative, but how then? Because there is a practical need for somebody to be there in Syria. Russia doesn't want to send its troops there. Israel doesn't want to send its troops there. The United States doesn't want to do that. That leaves the only option, and the only option is Iran.
Israel is a completely different situation, because unfortunately there are those that are abusing and exploiting the fact that the public opinion in the Arab world is against Israel, and Israel as being seen as the enemy, that if Israel takes one of the a position that can be exploited by the enemies, to say that it's not about Syria, but this is part of the entire Israeli
This is such nonsense. Such nonsense. It doesn't matter if it's left or right in Israeli politics. It's just like the United States. Democrat, Republican makes no difference. I've seen clearly with my own eyes 7 years of garbage of Democrats and Republicans, money laundering, crimes against humanity, and everything else you can possibly imagine. It's no different in Israeli politics. It's just the same. So no, the Israeli government, when they say they're treating al-Nusra and al-Qaeda for humanitarian purposes, what a hogwash. What a hogwash. Such hypocritical statements. And when she asked, why didn't Israel get involved? Then Iran would not be the issue. Israel should have got involved. After all, from a historical standpoint, the Syrian people, the very matriarchs of Israel, Laban, his family, all of his descendants are still living in this part of the world, and we don't care enough about the Syrian people to go get involved and help liberate them. You know, if we're not helping liberate them, we must have been part of the problem of help trying to destabilize a nation in the first place. And that's the cold, hard facts of the story. And this is just blown me away, and it's only going to get worse. There's just no way around that. All right, listen, before I get into some of these biblical things here, let me just share with those of you that are just watching for the news side of this. Let me go ahead and tell you real quick again about the conference there with Pastor Bagley there in Ohio. And you'll be able to see this. I'll just blow this up a little bit. There's $39 for the tickets. It's May the 11th. And it starts at 11 a.m. The doors open at 10 a.m. It's to 6 p.m. And the speakers are John Moore, thelibertyman.com has been privileged with the classified information over his long career. He's going to be speaking there. Clyde Lewis, Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, is a news personality that has years of research on Planet X. And of course myself, and then also I believe Brother Paul will be speaking as well. And I'll be sharing some information that I got from a friend of mine in the conference there up in Kansas. And wonderful brother. I can't say for sure from the look of his research and the intelligence of this brother, I have assumed that he is an astronomer. Or a former astronomer, or of something of that nature. But I don't know that for complete certainty. But anyway, the information is very compelling, and I'll be sharing some of that, some of the intelligence community side of things that I've seen as well, that kind of go hand in hand with the cover-ups that's going to be happening. And of course, it's up there in a place called Blue Ash, Ohio, which from what I can see there is northeast of Cincinnati there, out towards a place called Kenwood or High Point, in between those two locations there. So the address and everything is on Brother Paul's website. I will include that in the comments or in the description section below there for you, so that you can go right to his website, and I put a link directly to where he's talking about this event here. And I see, yeah, the location, everything is on there. It's at Noah's event venue, 10627 Techwood Circle, Blue Ash, Ohio, 45242. Gives you the map and everything exactly where that's at. I didn't do it. I just looked up Blue Ash on the map itself. So anyway, you can add it to your calendar directly, I guess, in the calendars section there. All right, so those of you that want to stick around, and let's go on into some biblical things there. There's some things that I just wanted to share with people on a biblical side. So, and I may cut this and put this on Danun Institute just on that biblical level. And I'm only highlighting some things that I find fascinating. And I don't know which one really to start with first. There's two things. I want to speak to you a little bit about the two witnesses, something I discovered on that. And